Hey guys, it's Matt. I'm basically like an expert on old wood stoves, and I've built rocket stoves. And the reason I'm making this video is, we all still have a little prepper in us, and I want to share everything I know about if you're interested in buying an old used wood stove. I think you should buy an old used wood stove even if you don't have a fireplace. So hear me out on that. There's some reasons to buy one even if you don't have an old fireplace, if you come across the right deal. And the last reason I'm making this video is it really relaxes cats. No, that's not the reason I'm making it, but she never comes out of her little hole over here. Very interested once the radiant heat starts to get close to it. But I'm making it because it's slim pickings, guys. It's slim pickings. What used to be available on Craigslist, it's really not that good what's available anymore. And if you find the right deal on an old used wood stove, you might have to drive 2 hours. That's 3 hours. That's not a big deal to get something that's going to last a lifetime. So let's just get right to the basics. If you have a fireplace in the house, I think it's insane for anybody, literally insane, for anybody to have a fireplace in the house that doesn't have a stove in it. One, from a prepping perspective, in case anything were to happen. Again, I lost power for 5 days in the ice storm. This thing heated the entire house. But a fireplace is a waste. If you just have a fireplace, you lose tons of heat up the chimney, even if your flue is closed. When you burn the wood in a regular fireplace, you lose tons of heat. It only feels warm if you're standing right next to it. You lose a ton of heat when you burn a fireplace. It's a complete waste. The wood gets burned up 10 times as quickly as it does in a stove. So because, the EPA hates these things, and every year they make it more and more difficult for a manufacturer to make one that meets EPA standards, they're all going to be probably put out of business eventually. And maybe that's why it's slim pickings on buying an old one. So, rule number one, if you're going to by the way, this is a Hearthstone brand from about 2002 or 2003, a Hearthstone. If you're buying an old wood stove, you would expect to pay $350 up to about $700. New ones now are $3,000 or more, something like that. It's just crazy. A lot of brands, I think, have been put under by the EPA. So rule number one, guys, is the older the better, honestly. An old wood stove, like an old Fisher that doesn't have glass, or an old Kodiak from the 80s, it's like a tank. You need 4 people to move it, probably 350 pounds. It's a tank that'll last a lifetime. Way, way better than a new stove. A new stove has all these guidelines, for EPA guidelines it has to meet, and it's harder to get a fire going, and it's just I would say the date is, you want 2005 or below on an old wood stove. There's nothing wrong with a stove from 1975 or 1980. Zara's you'd think Zara would dominate her, but it's just the opposite, which is really surprising. So, and when you look at them on Craigslist, they'll look like shit. All right, they just look like pieces of crap. But if you clean them up, oh boy, hey, hey, she'll drive Zara downstairs. It's all right. That's her. This is her area here, so she doesn't want Zara taking her heat. This little thing is 8.5 pounds, and she drives Zara off. Zara's mentally, she's fine. I mean, she doesn't, and there's never any real violence. Although I think they should be getting a little bit better than they do now at this point. So guys, the old ones are better than the new ones, and it'll look. You'll see these pictures on Craigslist, and you'll say, this just looks like absolute hell. And maybe it does, but if you get, high heat paint, you clean it up a little bit, if it's just iron, it'll be okay. It won't look, it will not look that great, an old stove. This one, looks nice, but most don't look this nice. But again, guys, what is it's peace of mind. You lose power for 5 days in the winter. This thing will heat the entire house. easily. This room will go to 80 degrees if I don't turn this down. So, when you buy an old wood stove, the most important thing is you want to make sure it's not cracked or warped from overfiring. And it's hard to do this, but it's best if it's in a darker setting. You put a flashlight inside, the highest lumens flashlight you can get, or multiple flashlights inside, and then you look all around it for the light coming through a crack. Sometimes it's like a micro crack. And that would be a problem. You don't want anything that's cracked. But if you can't do the flashlight test, you just examine the outside very thoroughly, even with a magnifying glass in some areas, then most aren't going to be cracked. But there are a lot of stoves sold, kind of like rip-off sales, coal stoves or wood stoves that are cracked. So remember the flashlight inside. If you find out it had a micro crack later, it's not the end of the world. You can patch it with some certain types of cement. Just make sure it's not fired too hot. It'll hold together. It's not going to just melt down, even if you find a micro crack. It's not the end of the world. So, guys, what you would do is there's two different types. The first type has the stovepipe coming out the top. And that then would have to sit back into your fireplace. So you'd need to have enough room. This one, by the way, guys, the surround, I just put this, it's a cement board I put around the fireplace because cats were getting around behind it. If they climb up the chimney, one cat, Pam's cat, started to climb the chimney years ago, and if it got stuck in there, it would have been a disaster. It would be like $5,000 event trying to rip the wall apart, trying to get the cat out. So that's what the bricks are there for as well. Cats get little crevices they can get under, get up into the chimney. I don't need that right now, so I have it all sealed up. And I'm in the process of putting this cement board around. Cement board does not burn, and I think even HardieBacker board does not burn. So, guys, back to what I was saying. The old wood stove you'd be looking to buy, you make sure it's not in any way cracked. You need 4 people to move it. Many of them have the stovepipe coming out the top, which it would need to sit inside the fireplace. This one wouldn't fit, so many have stovepipe coming directly out the back, like this one does. And that's fine. You can have stovepipe coming flat out the back. The smoke exhaust can stay level for 12 to 15 inches or so before then it needs to turn straight up. So if it comes, you can have the best stoves are ones actually that stand in front of the fireplace. If you have your stove in the fireplace or an insert, you lose half your heat up the chimney, where here all the heat is in front of the fireplace and all the heat is coming out into the house. The stovepipe extends straight back into the chimney, flat, level. Doesn't need to go up. It can go level for 12 to 15 inches. The minimum, the better, of course. You don't want smoke exhaust to go level before it turns up for a long run, or you're going to get smoke back up. But this one goes flat out the back, about 12 inches, then turns up. And if you're using it more for an emergency situation or for prepping, technically they would say you need to line your chimney with a liner, a flexible steel liner for a wood stove. But you didn't hear it from me, or not. I'm not giving you any advice. I'll just tell you what I know. What some guy did. I'm just telling you what some guy did. That I know it worked for him. He said, just run stovepipes 8 or 9 feet up into the chimney, and then so your stovepipe run would just be about 10 feet from the stove itself up into the chimney. Then the exhaust would vent up just like any other, just like burning a regular fireplace. So this guy didn't take his stovepipe all the way to the top, using it just as an emergency. Just had it, just ran stovepipe up 8 feet, and then it would just vent up his chimney, just like burning a regular fire in your fireplace. So your almost all these models are going to be your basic 8-inch stovepipe. I think Home Depot and Lowe's carry it. I know Lowe's carries it. I'm not sure about Home Depot. It's easy to get. It comes in, usually you have to put it together. It comes in sheets. It's kind of a real pain in the neck. You have to have a real knack to put it together. But it's cheap. It's not cheap, actually. It's not cheap at all. But you need enough sheets minimum to make 10, 12 feet or more of stovepipe. It would be best if you could run it all the way up. Now, I was going to say a little bit about chimneys, but I don't think it's necessary. Whatever you have is what you have and what you'll need to use. So the other thing that's really important to get for a lot of different reasons is mineral wool, or Roxul. Roxul used to be a brand name for mineral wool. There's different types of mineral wool insulation in Lowe's and Home Depot. And a lot of insulation is very flammable, very dangerous. And you want to pick up, there's a lot of different reasons why you might need mineral wool, depending on where your stovepipe is going. And let me just give you an example. Sorry, stay there, Zara. This is mineral wool. I'm just using it. I have this isn't even secured. This cement board isn't even secured yet, but because I want it propped up so it doesn't fall down. I know this was really shoddy, and I'm in the middle of working on this, but this is all I could do for now to get this stove burning. I just put a bunch of mineral wool, and it doesn't burn. It never will burn. It's really good to have, and any Lowe's or Home Depot has it. So, guys, a lot of these, any old stove that looks like crap on Craigslist will do. If it's from the 80s or the 90s, a lot of them, it will look like crap, many of them. Some look nice, but a lot of them look like crap. And if that was the case, they're very, very, very heavy, so it's like it wouldn't be very efficient to keep it in the garage and then move it in the house if you ever needed to. But some people, from a prepping perspective, might, if you ever find a good deal on a wood stove and you have to drive an hour and a half to get it, and it would be worth keeping in the garage and keeping your 15 feet of stovepipe in the garage. And any money you spend on stovepipe or on a wood stove, a used wood stove, you want to talk about putting your money into something that will never lose value, or putting in your money into things that you can drop on your foot, not just some zeros and ones and digital that go into your bank and then goes into some digital oblivion. If you had somebody might say, I have a fireplace, and 4 months from now you see this deal on a wood stove. Buy it, keep it in your garage, keep the stovepipe in your garage, keep the mineral wool in your garage. And if something really terrible happened, or even like what happened to me, like a 5-day power outage in the middle of January, lows at night were 15 degrees. If you have, you could move it in and set it up. If you kind of had a plan on how to set it up, you could move it in and set it up. If you had 2 other, guys that could carry it, or 3 other guys around, or neighbors that could help you, or family, you could set it up in 2 hours and get it going. And if you needed it for 5 days or some major ice storm or whatever, it would make sense to have it in the garage and your stovepipe and everything ready to go. As long as you kind of had the plan figured out as to how, these things are like 350 pounds. They're extremely heavy. But some stoves are smaller and they're easier to move, but most are big behemoths, and most are not really, it's not really a good idea to be like, oh, I'll just move it in when I need it. It's a real half-a-day undertaking to get these things in place and set up. But again, if you had to, and you had people that could help you, if I had 2 other strong guys and this was in the garage and I had my stovepipe, I could work 2 hours. I could probably get it set up. The stovepipe would only be running 8 or 10 feet up the chimney, be all loose and not secured and not safe, and that's not if your house burned down, no insurance company's going to cover that. It's all jury rigged, of course. That's not the way to do it right. Your insurance company's not going to cover that. I'm just saying an absolute emergency, for whatever that emergency may be. And In terms of wood, though, guys, it is very important when they talk about seasoning of wood. It's very important to have wood that's kind of been dead or cut for a year. You go get some wet green wood, it just won't burn. I mean, it really, you'd be surprised. The wood has to be dead for a while. And they used to kind of tell me like, oh, this oak tree's been dead out here for 8 or 9 years. The wood's just completely ready to burn. It's not. It is not. Even if the tree's been dead for 10 years. If the tree's been dead, all right, it's green or its sap's gone, but still, you still would have to split it and keep it in the open air at least for 3 or 4 weeks for it to burn properly. And I'm talking about a tree that's been dead for many, many years. So, general rule is, especially with oak, or if it's heavy, if it feels like it's waterlogged at all, it's not going to burn. It's going to smoke your house out. Wood that's ready to go and ready to burn is very light, even oak pieces. Although, dense oak, even seasoned for 2 years can be quite heavy. I'm just saying you have to be very careful as to what you burn. Any old piece of wood in there, that's not ready in season will smoke your house out. It's a disaster. And a lot of wood stoves, will smoke when you open the door. And if that happens to you, don't freak out. That's normal. This thing will smoke. If I open the door and try to add wood to that, like, why would I, right? But if I try to add wood to that, it will smoke this room out where you almost can't even be in here. So I have to be very patient with this stove. Its draw is not as good as other stoves I've had. I have to wait for this to go down to just red coals. And when it's red coals, then you can just open it up. There's no issue at all. You add your wood. And to get it started, you have to take a lot more time and care getting it started if your stove smokes back when you open the door. So you'd put, instead of like 20 sticks in there, you'd put 80 sticks in there. You get it, you have to set it up properly to start it. Then let all those sticks go down to coals. Once it's coals, it will not smoke back. Also, the heat of the chimney has a lot to do with smoking back. Like if you have a chimney, this is actually important about chimneys. If you have a chimney that's on, chimneys that are built on the outside of the house, most people's I think are on the outside of the house, the bricks, you can see them on the outside. That's very cold because the bricks are on the outside, and that will not draft properly until it gets warm. All right, if you have a chimney through the center of the house, much, 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 much better. But don't get frustrated. If you put a wood stove up and your chimney is the bricks are on the outside, it will only draw up and suck up smoke properly when it gets warm. So you would need to spend if you don't spend a lot, let's say you just put in 15 sticks, light it with a few pieces of paper, you just got this, old wood stove because Matt made this video, whatever, and then you open the door to add sticks and smoke just comes pouring out. That's normal, guy. You can overcome that. That's normal. I mean, some people, the more you insulate your exhaust, let's say you ran stovepipe up the middle of the chimney, and your chimney was like the bricks are on the outside. The more you insulate your stovepipe, the more you keep your pipe warm. It's counterintuitive. You would think hot moves to cold, but no. Hot wants to continue to move through hot for some reason. So the idea would be, not that I don't even know how you could do it, but I'm just saying from a mental imagery, if you have mineral wool insulation all around your stovepipe, packed in the chimney, then if your chimney was on the outside of the house, it would heat up very, very quickly, and it would start to draw like you wouldn't believe. So the most successful chimneys are these like double or triple insulated chimneys, stovepipes, where there's a layer of insulation around the stovepipe. It heats up very quickly, and then it really starts to suck. So if you have a situation where you buy an old wood stove and it smokes back, I mean, you'll figure it out. You can get through that. your chimney also has to have a long enough run. All right, some people will jury rig something up where the stovepipe doesn't go very long, just 5 or 6 feet up the chimney, and that's not. You need you need a long run on a stovepipe going up or on a chimney. A long run creates it's counterintuitive. You think, well, it has to go farther in a little pipe. How would that help? But if, for example, if I had this burning and I had just 2 feet of stovepipe going up the chimney, and then it wouldn't draw properly. It wouldn't work. The stove wouldn't work. You need a long run on your chimney and the longest run you can on your stovepipe. God, I can't stress enough how cold chimney on the outside of a house will smoke you back where you think it just won't work. But you get that chimney hot, or if you were to do that same burn, why would you do it in June? But if you did that same burn in June with those hot bricks, it would suck right up. So you can overcome that with mineral wool, insulating the chimney pipe, a lot of different, making sure you build your fires properly from the start. And, I'm just saying, if you have some troubles in the beginning, all is not lost. I mean, you'll figure it out. And I don't think you can go wrong, guys, even if you don't even put it in your fireplace. Even if you don't have a fireplace, you can't really go wrong. These things will just get more rare, more expensive, and in a real emergency situation or prepping situation, you can't beat it. It doesn't require any electricity. You just have to have, you have to have a place where you store wood that's 2 or 3 years old and ready to go. Good 50, 60, 70 pieces ready to go. It's dried out. You can't get the wood on the fly. It'll be wet. It won't be ready to go. And, then your whole system, it doesn't matter how good your system is if your wood's not dry and aged properly for at least a year. All right, guys. Well, I hope that was helpful. If anybody was interested in an old wood stove, if you see one 2 hours away, 2.5 hours away, the right price. Oh, by the way, guys, you can look up on Craigslist coal stove as well. Not that you'll even all coal stoves, in my understanding is, well, most coal stoves will burn wood. It depends on the setup. Some won't, but coal stoves also burn wood. Their fireboxes are a lot smaller. It's not ideal, but if you had to, like if I found an old Harmon or something, I mean, you can burn wood, I believe, in that type of a setup. But they're way heavier too, and it's not, you want to avoid it. Somebody's selling a Harmon down the street, Harmon Mark II for it should be $1,500 and selling for $400. I'd buy it in a heartbeat, I guess is what I'm saying. And if you had to, you could put smaller wood in it, smaller sticks. You don't need to have coal. Most coal stoves start by wood. Most coal stoves, the old potbellies, would start with a wood fire, and then you add coal on top of the wood. So, you get a good deal down the street on a coal stove with a nice little glass window. It's probably going to be 150 pounds heavier, but don't turn your nose up at that, because that's worth its weight in gold as well. And those are fire bricks, guys, not just any old bricks, but not that, you could put any old bricks there. It's not like it's that hot, but I'm just letting you know that's what a fire brick looks like, that you put these. I should mention this. A lot of these stoves are lined with fire brick, and a lot are just iron. It is better to find one lined with fire brick. If you're going to move the stove, make sure you remove the fire brick inside. Fire bricks come out. Will take about 150 pounds off the stove in some cases, or 100 pounds off the stove. Remove your fire brick. Take the glass door off if you can before you move it or transport it. But there's many of stoves like Vermont Castings and other brands that are just iron inside. That's fine too. They don't all need fire brick inside. There's just 2 different styles. Hope this was somewhat helpful. And if you have a fireplace with nothing in it, just keep your eyes peeled in the marketplaces, whatever. Something within an hour drive will pop up, and grab it when it does, even if you don't even put it in my opinion. Thanks.